Hi folks, welcome back. My name's Jess. This is the Scapegoat Club, and today I want to talk about being able to trust a therapist after your narcissistic family abuse. Hi guys, so today's video comes from some questions I've had from folks around how to find a therapist and how to really trust a therapist after you've either found out about narcissistic family abuse or extracted yourself or gone no contact, or you're thinking about it all. So I think this is a real issue with folks like us who have had such a difficult time with people who should have been looking after us who didn't. And it destroys our ability to know who we can trust. And I think the first part of the message I wanted to say today is that it's really important to recognize that we are in a really vulnerable place once we start to realize and recognize that things aren't as they should be and that we are in an abusive family system. So one of the problems that we have when we realize that our family are narcissistic is that partly we realize that the people that we thought were supposed to be there for us and were good are maybe not telling the truth, and it may not be the case. But also we realized that the support system that we had, even though it was a screwed up support system, we actually lose it. So that's one of the really tough parts about escaping a narcissistic family system, is that a lot of us are codependent. And what that means is that we haven't been brought up with healthy boundaries and healthy knowledge around who we are and who other people are and how we support ourselves and how we relate to other people. So the narcissists in our lives use us to prop up their own egos, and so they themselves don't know how to, they project themselves onto other people around them. So rather than having healthy coping mechanisms where we can rely on ourselves to make ourselves feel better, to soothe ourselves, to rely on ourselves, to trust ourselves, narcissists don't have that, and they need that from the rest of us. And also because they don't have it, they can't teach us how to do it. So growing up in these family systems, we end up with this kind of double whammy of not only are we being abused by the people who should be looking after us, but we also don't have any way of being able to, or we haven't learned how to look after ourselves. And so what happens when we realize that our family is toxic and dysfunctional is that even though the family system we have is severely dysfunctional, it is on some level a support system for us. We can relate to it, we've adapted to it, we've found a way to survive within this screwed up world of crazy. And so what happens when you take away a support system from somebody, anybody, anything, and you don't have something else in place to support that person, it is terrifying. And I can't emphasize that enough. On a psychological level, the terror, the abject threat to our survival of having all of our support systems taken away, even if they're screwed up, having them taken away really screws up with our brains. And it is, from a kind of an existential or a psychological or on any kind of level, it is just so counterintuitive to how we survive as beings in this world. So I think, first of all, realizing and recognizing that we are in such a terrifying, vulnerable place is a really important thing, because just knowing that that's where we are, I think for me, I didn't know when I went through my problems with my family and I got to the point of having to extract myself, and I realized I couldn't rely on them and I had to start relying on myself, that was one of the most terrifying things I've ever felt. Even though I was being validated that my family were difficult, toxic, dysfunctional, and that I wasn't the problem, the fact was I didn't have any way within myself to support myself. I didn't have the ability to say, okay, Chess, you can handle this, or you're right, or you can get through this, because I'd always been told, and I think it's common for scapegoats, we're always told what we think doesn't count, that we're worthless, that we're not good at it, that we should just rely on the other people to sort us, to help us out, to do it for us, or because we are not to be trusted, we are not worthy, and we are not capable. And so being thrown loose, even though those terrorists in our lives we're trying to get rid of them, the fact is we don't have anything else to support it. And just if you're in that situation, please, I hope this helps you understand that it is a really, really difficult thing, and it's completely normal, and it's completely right that you feel this vulnerable and scared and don't know where to turn, and it's terrifying. So I hope that knowing that it is what it is on some level, some crazy level, that actually helps, just knowing that is part of it. And so moving on, I really believe that therapy has helped me a lot. And so the question is, what do you do when you're terrified of everything and you don't know who you can trust, and you're naturally extremely wary of anything, of trusting anybody, of even talking to someone, because perhaps you've been in this family system where you haven't been allowed to tell the truth, or any time you've shared any feelings or anything vulnerable, it's been used against you or ridiculed, or it's been weaponized against you. So it's really, really normal, I think, to be wary of therapy, of anyone and everything. Completely normal. Though what I would say, though, is to kind of combat those thoughts, narcissism is not normal. It's normal for us, unfortunately, and I think that once you have been exposed to a narcissist in a family situation and you've grown up in this dysfunctional family, unfortunately, as I said before, we don't have these coping mechanisms, so we can attract unhealthy people to us in our lives. So you may think, and you may be like, well, I see narcissists everywhere, and I think I can relate to that a little bit. It is likely that we will have encountered more than our fair share of them, I think, because of our patterns. Unfortunately, we attract those people because we don't know how to differentiate help in a healthy way. But having said that, narcissism is not in the big grand scheme of the world. Thankfully, hopefully it is, there are less narcissists than there are decent people. So the odds on you getting a narcissist or a narcissistic person as a therapist also are low, partly because the odds are there aren't so many in the population, and also it should be training to be a therapist, which is what I'm doing right now. It's pretty intense, and it takes a lot of internal and reflective work. It's going to be quite difficult for a narcissist to get through that. I'm not saying they won't, but it's going to be less likely, and also hopefully most people are motivated to help. So I'm going to stick up for the therapeutic profession and say hopefully most of us are pretty safe. Also, therapy is confidential, so please be aware that if you are going to therapy that and you have a narcissist in your life who's interested and wants to know, or maybe paying for the therapy, and so therefore thinks that they get inside information about the therapy. No, absolutely not. 100% no. Actually not legal, against professional ethics. A therapist cannot legally disclose any information from a therapy session without the client, that's you, without your express permission. So therapy should be confidential. And really, there's a lot of different types of therapy and therapists, and I was wondering whether to go into them in the video, but there are so many, honestly, I can go and be here forever. But there are some common themes through all therapies, and the main one is that therapists are there to support their clients unconditionally. And what that means is that they are just there to really do whatever is best for you. So I hope that that gives you some comfort as well. However, what is right for you may look different to different therapists, and I think this is where some of the ambiguity might come in. So some therapists are aligned to therapeutic models where they don't outwardly encourage a client. They support you, but they don't encourage. And so what that difference means is that the therapist won't say, yes, I think that's a great idea, I think you should do that. They won't advise. And there's a very good reason for that. The therapist isn't there to make your decisions for you. The therapist is there to help you support yourself. It's a really subtle difference, but it's really important. And as you're coming out of a narcissistic relationship, it's really important that you have to learn to support yourself, because you haven't got these self-support mechanisms. And if you're watching this going, what the hell do you mean by self-support mechanisms? That's because you have never had any. Yeah, I get it. But healthy adults console themselves when things go wrong. They talk themselves through difficult situations. They parent themselves and they soothe themselves in these difficult situations. So those are the kind of things that we need to learn to do for ourselves and not have them from other people. Having said that, I think that there is a time and a place, especially early on in the therapy, when you are just coming out of a difficult relationship, when, as I said, you're in the situation where you don't have those self-supporting mechanisms that you need, and you've lost everything else. And so that's when I think that actually a therapist does have a good opportunity to actually stand in there and be that supporting and encouraging person, really to help you through that. So if that's something that you need, then I would just be aware of it. If you're looking for a more positive, supportive therapist, you can always ask them how they work with people. I would also suggest, if you're not sure of who to work with, the most important thing is to feel safe with that person. It's kind of tricky because you probably don't feel safe anywhere. But there's a difference between feeling unsafe and feeling uncomfortable. And the therapist should be able to make you feel at least safe. You might not be comfortable with sharing everything immediately. You might go through ups and downs. But if you feel really unsafe with a therapist for whatever reason, then I would say, okay, you don't work with them. If you're not feeling it, if you don't feel like you've got any kind of connection with them and they're not able to make you feel safe, then you probably don't want to be there, because the whole point is to feel safe and then move on. And if you don't feel safe, you're still in that kind of fight, flight, freeze place. It's like a survival place, and that's a different part of your brain, and you really can't start to think straight and clearly and problem solve when you're in that place. So if you don't feel safe with your therapist, then for whatever reason, move on. Find someone. There's a lot of therapists out there. So I really hope that kind of helped a little bit. And I would say, if you are thinking of going to therapy and it's scary, yeah, it really is. It really, really is. But there's that phrase of, you can't move on until you've tried something new. What is it? If you want something different, you have to try something new. And I honestly think that therapy it's really important. Unfortunately, our brains are complicated things, and it's really hard to fix our own. And that's what therapists are there for. So be strong and hang in there, my friends. Therapy and time. That's what seems to help the most. Therapy time and yeah, keeping as far away from that narcissist as you possibly can. Thank you as always for being here. If you're able to support the channel, thumbs up is great. Give me a like on the video. Subscribe is brilliant. Drop me a comment as well. And I do have a Patreon page. If you're able to make any kind of financial donation towards making videos, even if it's a really small one, I appreciate it all. Thank you so much, my friends. I will talk to you soon. Bye.